Okay, we're back in business. Let's go to the PowerPoint. Okay, there are 100,000 different proteins, the most abundant organic component in the body. Proteins make up muscle fibers, they make up the long extensions of nerves. There's all kind of enzymes that are protein. Uh, Protein makes up cartilage and uh, it also has albumin floating around in the blood. So proteins contain carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and sulfur. So proteins do a lot of things: support muscle movement, transport inner vital cells, buffering the blood, regulate using hormones, and antibodies are made of proteins. So you should know this basic structure. This is amino acid. An amino acid has a central carbon. This is a carboxyl group. This is an amine group. This is acid. This is slightly basic. You should know that the amino group is a nitrogen with two hydrogens. The carboxyl group is a carbon with a double bonded oxygen and an OH group. So you should know these names. There'll be a lot of webisines asking questions about carboxylic acid and amino groups and the structure of an amino acid, which is the building blocks of proteins. Okay, so again, we have dehydration synthesis between two amino acids, and that makes a peptide bond, removes H2O, and forms a peptide bond. So this is called a dipeptide. Proteins are long, long chains of amino acids joined together. There are about 20 essential amino acids. We can't make them, we have to eat them. And so amino acids are joined by peptide bonds to build proteins. So proteins have very complex shapes depending upon their composition. Keratin fiber in your skin is long filaments. Hemoglobin is made up of 4 parts. Each part carries a molecule of oxygen. Myoglobin carries oxygen in your muscles. So you take a bunch of amino acids, join them together, and you have a polypeptide chain, and long chains of amino acids are able to be folded into various shapes, which greatly determines the function of the protein. So hemoglobin carries oxygen, so does myoglobin. It's in the muscle, so it's called myoglobin. Keratin waterproofs your skin. We talked about the R group. Go back to the R group. There it is right there. The R group determines the characteristics of these amino acids because all amino acids have this amino group and this carboxyl group. So the R group is going to determine the different characteristics and properties of amino acids. So if we look at that summary again, R groups interact with their neighbors. The presence of R groups helps determine how the amino acid chain folds into a complex shape. Shape determines function. High fever distorts that shape. Distorted proteins don't work. So the shape of a protein, the three-dimensional shape of a protein, based upon the amino acids of which it is made, determine the properties of a protein. So read through these statements. Make sure you understand them. Okay. Enzymes are also proteins. They have what's called an active site. And at the active site, when a compound binds, it has that determines what function or what chemical reaction the protein will catalyze. The result of an enzymatic reaction is a product that's called the substrates or the reactants. Once the product is produced, it's released from the enzyme surface and the activation energy has been reduced. So make sure you understand what a substrate is, the product, the binding site, the active site on an enzyme. So if you imagine a large protein taking two substrates, uh, binding them to its active site, the active site allows this product to be joined at a very low temperature. And as soon as that product is done, the enzyme releases the product and keeps repeating the reaction. The enzymes are not modified during this reaction. Okay, DNA, all you got to know is DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA is ribonucleic acid. And if you haven't got your vaccine, please get it because the messenger RNA in the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines is revolutionary. And in 8 months, we're supposed to be getting a booster shot. I read that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which works with DNA, is very potent and it enhances, I think, like 5 to 10 times the amount of antibodies. So we're not going to worry about nucleic acid, except you worry about it to get your vaccination. If you don't have your vaccination to be macabre or morbid, I sure hope you don't get it during the class because I've had people get COVID during my classes and nobody died. So get your vaccination. Okay, so let's go back to the room here. Let's stop the recording. Stop the recording.